The starting point for a single Category 1A offence is 12 years custody, with a range up to 16 years. The starting point for a single Category A2 offence is 7 years custody. Of course, I am not concerned here only with a single offence. There are a number of aggravating factors not already taken into account. You have a number of previous convictions. You are now aged 54. Between the ages of 18 and 22, you accumulated a number of convictions, including for offences of violence, one of which resulted in a sentence of 12 months imprisonment. Those convictions were interwoven with your short period of military service from which you were discharged on the basis that your services were no longer required. Although you are not a man of previous good character, and perhaps have always had issues with your temper, you have not, though, committed any other offence for many years, and I do not increase your sentence, therefore, because of this antecedent history. The offences were committed during a major public celebration in the city of Liverpool, transforming an occasion of collective enjoyment into one of fear and disruption, and causing significant and lasting harm to the life and reputation of the city. That is a further aggravating factor. Also, there was adverse impact on city centre businesses, and the offences were committed in the presence of children, and some of the victims were very young and others were elderly. There are, of course, other important factors that I must have regard to, factors which reflect personal mitigation. As I have observed, after a troubling start to your adult life, you did turn your life around. You went to university and have had a successful career within the cyber security industry, and you are married with 2 sons. I have read a substantial number of character references written by family members, friends, colleagues, and professional associates. They come from people who have known you over many years and in different settings, including your wife, your close family, former colleagues in the technology sector, neighbours, and community contacts. Collectively, those references describe you as a devoted husband and father, a reliable and supportive family member, and a person who has lived a disciplined and responsible life for many years. You are consistently described as hard-working, kind, generous with your time, and willing to help others. Several referees speak of your professional success, your mentorship of younger colleagues, and your involvement in community and sporting activities with children. These people are as bewildered as everyone else at the shocking events of the 26th of May, describing it as wholly out of character. They also refer to your expressions of regret. I accept all of that, and I recognise that the sentence I am bound to pass will have a devastating and profound impact on you, and more importantly, on your wife and children. But I am afraid that this evidence of positive good character can have only limited effect on the sentence when the court is dealing with offences of this gravity. In my judgment, the presence of multiple high culpability factors, the balance of aggravating and mitigating factors, and the sheer scale of the offending justifies a sentence very significantly above the relevant category range for an A1 offence. You are also entitled to some reduction in your sentence to reflect your guilty pleas. I appreciate that this will have been a difficult decision, and the circumstances in which you have been detained have not made legal conferences straightforward. But the evidence against you on many, if not all, of the charges was overwhelming, and you could have given an indication of acceptance of responsibility much earlier than you did. The relevant guideline provides that where, as here, guilty pleas are entered at the commencement of the trial, the reduction should be no more than 10%. I am not persuaded that you should receive greater credit than that. Because many of these offences are specified offences, I am required to consider the issue of dangerousness. That is, whether there is a significant risk of you committing further specified offences, and, if so, whether there is a significant risk of you causing serious harm as a result. Given the highly unusual circumstances of this case, your general character and your lack of previous convictions for similar behaviour, I am not satisfied that you do present such a risk. The further matter which requires to be considered in this case is the issue of totality. In a case such as this, I cannot simply take a figure for one offence and multiply it by a factor of 29. A proper balance must be struck between the acknowledgement of your multiple and very serious offending and the imposition of a just and proportionate sentence. I take all of the Section 18 offences as the lead offences, and all sentences will run concurrently. The total sentence will reflect your offending in respect of all associated offences on the indictment. In the circumstances, the total sentence which I impose upon you is one of 21 years and 6 months imprisonment. It would have been 24 years after trial. This will comprise sentences of 21 years and 6 months on each of the 12 Section 18 grievous bodily harm and wounding offences, sentences of 16 years on each of the attempted Section 18 offences, and sentences of 20 months on each of the offences of affray and dangerous driving. As I have said, each of those sentences will run concurrently, making a total sentence of 21 years and 6 months. You will serve 2/3 of that sentence in custody before you are released on licence. If you fail to abide by the conditions of your licence, you can be returned to serve some or all of the remainder of that sentence. For the offence of dangerous driving, you will also be disqualified from holding or obtaining a licence to drive, and you will be disqualified until you have passed an extended retest. Many people will think that you should never be allowed to drive again, but I must also consider your prospects for rehabilitation. I intend to impose a disqualification from driving that will operate for a further 3 years after your eventual release. The total period of the disqualification from today's date comprises a combination of extension and uplift to reflect the term in custody you will serve. To spell this out, the period of discretionary disqualification is 3 years, plus 10 months extension representing half of the custodial term for the offence of dangerous driving, plus 13 years and 6 months uplift to reflect the sentences imposed on the other offences. Because the disqualification cannot be backdated to the date you went into custody, I consider it right to reduce the discretionary period by 6 months to take account of the approximate time you have already spent in custody.